think I'm safe to say be all right for another hour or so here.
No,
Do you? I mean, I don't know what this umpteenth record, 40th album, I suppose you've made, the Captain and the Kid, this latest one. Does it get any? I mean, is the excitement the same? Waiting for the result of it? Is it going to flop? Is it going to be good or what?
I think the fear is always there when you make a new record or you write a new song, and if the fear isn't there, then the excitement's gone, and you should be doing something else. I'm be 60 next year, and I haven't lost any of the enthusiasm for music or making music or writing music since Bernie and I first started, and we've been together 40 years next year. So every album you make, you're holding your breath and hoping that it will come out, because you don't really know. You sit down at the piano with a bunch of songs and you hope that something good comes out of it. This one was a little different because, like Captain Fantastic and the Brown Duck Cowboy, which was the predecessor 31 years ago, it's autobiographical, and it was written in running order, so and it concerns me. So I was heavily involved in the songs and the emotion of the songs. So that made it a little easier.
But I mean, 60, I mean, does it find you in, I suppose, ambitious but reflective mood?
I'm in a very, very happy mood. I'm very happy personally. I'm very happy professionally. And I get to do different things other than my career. I mean, I have the Elton John career, but I get to do things like Billy Elliot, and I get also to write with the Scissor Sisters, which is #1 this week. So I've got a very varied life. Life couldn't be better. It's been a long journey to find happiness, but I'm really, really happy.
Is mellow a word we could ever use about you? I mean, is it a tantrum-free zone now, Elton John?
I don't really have that many tantrums. There was one documented at Taiwan airport, I do believe.
What were the circumstances?
Oh, we arrived there, and we were ambushed by the press, who told us that they didn't want us in their country, and we had to walk about a mile and a half. It was just a very unpleasant experience. I didn't know that it was going live on national television, of course, and I calling them all sorts of names. I'm a bit of a lightning rod, because as you get older, you tend to speak your mind more. You do too.
Yes.
And it gets you into trouble, or it courts controversy.
But I mean, how's George Michael then? And,
George is great. I haven't seen him since Hampstead Heath. Oh dear. George and I are fine. All that bit when he came on your television, they completely made a complete rubbish out of that. George and I are fine. He came and stayed down at my house last year. We're fine. I'd
always imagined, actually, that in your retirement, what you might do... I know that you've talked about having a retirement home and filling it with friends.
Yes.
But I'd imagine you could fill it with kind of people like George, say, and Pete Bertie and people like that, problem people.
I like to help people.
Yes.
I'm a recovering alcoholic and a drug addict, so one of the things you have to do is, if you are still sober and you're in recovery, is try and help people who need help. And I've done that to several people. It's whether they listen or not is the same thing.
Yes.
You can tell people till you're blue in the face. It's when they're ready. People told me time and time and time again that I was a nightmare, and I was a nightmare, and I had a huge problem, but I wouldn't listen. There's a line in one of the songs on the new album that says, "You couldn't tell me I was wrong, you couldn't tell me anything, but if you did, I must have lost it on the wind." And everybody finds, when they're ready for it, they find their own way.
What was that moment with you, though? Was there just one thing that precipitated it? Was it an event?
I was confronted by someone who I was in a relationship with. I also had been at the funeral of Ryan White, who I'd been there for the last week of his life in Indianapolis, and I grew very close to the Ryan White family. And I realised, then that my life was horrible, and how out of balance it was, and how ungrateful I was about everything. And it was 6 months after that I got sober, and it's been 16 years, and they've been some of the happiest years I've ever had in my life.
When you look back on that time, from where you are now, are you able to assess what you were, and what was happening to you? Are you able to put that in a compartment? Is there nothing left of that now?
There's nothing left of that now. There's a tendency, it's always lurking inside you if you're an addict. You always tend to want to run away from stuff and want to run away and hide and things like that. It never goes away completely. But looking back on it now, I am a completely different person. Let me put it frankly, drugs do not make... if you take drugs, the real person disappears and some monster comes out. And it's not the real person. I mean, so that you take the choice. Some people can take drugs recreationally and it has no effect on them. I have an addictive personality. I can't have one of anything. And I certainly couldn't have one line of cocaine or one, you know. And so it became a problem for me. And as a result of it, I didn't become a particularly nice person.
Now, let's talk about you mentioned there Billy Elliot.
Yeah.
And I've seen the show twice, and I think it's a knockout show. America, we might talk, it's going to America soon, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but let's first of all talk about when you saw the movie. What was it about that movie that made you think, oh, I want to write a musical about this?
Well, it's a bit like my story, or anyone who aims to be in show business or loves music. I always sort of sought the approval of, you know, my dad. And in the end, I got it. It took a long time, and that's the story of Billy in the film as well. He wanted the approval of his dad, and there's his dad in the box at the Royal Opera House at the end of the film, and it just struck a chord with me, and it was a very similar circumstances. And I was sitting at the Cannes Film Festival, sobbing in the cinema, and had to be escorted out by a few people, and it was we went upstairs to the party, and David said, you know, this would make a great musical. And even though there was great music in the film, I just thought it was incredible scope to make it even more political than perhaps the movie was.
You're still going to see it?
Oh, absolutely, because the hardest thing is because the boys change. You know, the boys only change every 6 months.
Yes.
And Liam, who was our youngest boy, is finishing in October. And we now have a black Billy, we have a Chinese Billy, we have an American Billy. And the great thing about it is the boys change, and so there's a constant infusion of talent and energy into the show. And it's something that's quite extraordinary. It has a life of its own, this show, and we'll take it to America in 2008. We're workshopping it now for America. We'll change it slightly, we'll improve it. What we want to do is improve it. We'll take it to Australia next year. And it's going to run for a year in Sydney, a year in Melbourne, as is. But for America, we want to beef it up a bit.
Well, I mean, for America, it'll need explaining a lot more, won't it? I mean,
well,
the
yes.
nuance, I mean, that relationship, the Miners, the Maggie Thatcher, the North Country thing. Yeah. I mean,
well, we're going to have to. What we're going to have to do, without giving anything away, is there's a film at the beginning of the show, if anyone has seen it, and they'll know that, about the miners' strike and Herbert Morris and all those people. What we're going to have to do is get rid of that and show Mrs. Thatcher.
Yes.
So because the bridge and tunnel people coming in will not know who she is.
No, bridge and tunnel
people.
No,
the bridge and tunnel people will not know who Mrs. Thatcher is. I mean, they don't even know where Mexico is, so they're not going to know where...
No, 60th birthday. Then are you going to celebrate like your 50th? I hope not. You remember that furniture van you had to get into?
I know, with my hair.
Yes,
yeah.
Your dress was it Madame La Pompadour or something?
Well, it wasn't Madame La Pompadour.
Oh, sorry.
It was Mademoiselle La Pompadour, thank you very much. Cheek. Yeah, that was... it would have been all right, but the driver took the wrong turning. So it's only a very short distance from my house in Holland Park to the Hammersmith Palais. But he took the wrong turning. It took us an hour and a half, and I had this hair that was held on with knitting needles, glue, chewing gum. And I looked like Marge Simpson. Every time the van stopped, my head went... And I was in such a state by the time I got there. That I was like, oh! And as I was lowered down from the truck, I just had to... It was a Bette Davis moment. I was going, hello. Never again. Now, I'm going to be celebrating my 60th in New York.
Excellent. Now, tell me about... Let's go back to the album.
Yeah.
You say it's autobiographical, and it starts at the point where you actually go to America, doesn't it? That's
yes, it does. I mean, the original album was all about dealing with failure, and this album's all about dealing with success.
Yes.
And how hard that was sometimes to deal with.
All right. Now, so it's autobiographical. So what is the bridge about, then? What part of your life does this...
Well, the bridge is about having the courage and the willpower to carry on. And certain artists, you can really adapt it to any situation in life, but this... It was about our songwriting. And there have been times when, you know, people said they're breaking up, but we haven't been breaking up. And it's the will to go on until you've reached a certain point where you know you're safe, where you know that you reached a certain point of excellence and you have a great back catalogue and that you're really secure in what you've done. A lot of artists break up, a lot of groups break up because of infighting and they don't stay together. A lot of relationships, like songwriting partnerships, don't last. Sure. As I said, we're 40 years. It's about having taking the leap of faith, being scared. Well, you said the first thing, do you have fear? Fear is what it's all about. The fear of doing something new, to try and do something different, to try and find the perfect song. You're never going to find the perfect song, but you still have to have the wherewithal to try and do it.